Today I'll give you my top 10 tips on entering art competitions, both from the perspective of someone who's entered a lot of them and from someone who's judged them. Stick around, won't you? Hey ArtTube. Well, today we're going to talk about art contests. I'm going to open up my brain and let you see inside. I just finished judging an online art show for Fine Art Studio Online's Bold Brush July 2018 competition. It isn't the first show that I've judged, but as I was judging it, it reinforced a lot of my impressions from previous shows. Over the years, we artists will enter a lot of shows, and it's a great way to connect with the art community and collectors. It looks good on your bio, and doing well in certain well-respected shows can really open the doors to gallery representation, which is just what happened to me after being awarded a medal at the Oil Painters of America's Western Regional Show. So there are a lot of upsides to entering art shows. But if you don't have your straight thinking glasses on, it can be really tough on your pride and ego. So I just want to give you my list of the top 10 ways that I believe you can improve your odds in an art competition. Okay, here's my disclaimer. These are just my thoughts on what worked for me and what I look for when I'm judging an art show. Of course, every judge is different and looks for different things. Sometimes it feels like you're just gambling and losing when entering shows. But I believe that if you follow the guidelines I'm giving you, you'll do better on not only getting into more art shows, but also placing in the money. So here we go. Tip number 10 would have to be stand out from the crowd. In my last competition, there were 1,840 entries. So you have to do something that's going to get you noticed. Paint something that's unique to you. All the same kind of categories you would expect, like portraiture. Lots of still lifes with either fruit or flowers were popular. Oh, and loads of landscapes. Lots of trees. One genre that's always wildly popular? Wildlife. There were lots of dogs and cats because people love painting their pets. I mean, who doesn't love Snoopy? There were lots of Western genre paintings, my personal favorite. Horses, cattle, cowboys, cowboy hats. You had your ocean scenes, boats both in the water and dry docked. There were lots of amazing abstract and experimental pieces. And some genres I wasn't really quite sure what it was. And my personal least favorite of all, when people feel like they want to paint their kids just after they've had their lunch or dinner and it's smeared all over their face. Oh boy. Tip number 9 is just a tweak. If you're going to paint a scene, try and paint a scene that has a mood to it. Manipulate your lighting so that you make your viewer feel something. Always much more effective. Tip number 8, research your judge to see if you have something that might connect better with them. I'm not saying paint for the judge, but just see if you have an entry that you think might connect with them. Tip number 7 is choose your entries wisely. Just because you're allowed to do multiple entries doesn't mean that you always should. If you have one strong painting and the other one that you're on the fence about, leave that second one out. Oftentimes an artist's strong entry can get eliminated because of a weak entry that he also entered. Tip number 6 has to do with traditional versus digital entries. And sometimes they're both in the same show. When I'm judging an art competition, I will always give the nod of a prize to a traditionally painted piece over a digital painting. And that's if both paintings are equally successful in my eyes. The reason to me is pretty obvious. Traditional paintings are harder to do than digital, since there are no undo buttons in traditional, and there are so many ways to cover up your shortcomings on the computer. Though I would happily give the nod to a better digital painting over an inferior traditional painting. And I feel comfortable with that opinion because I spent the last 15 years of my illustration career doing digital paintings, and now I make a living with traditionals, so I think I've got a valid opinion. Tip number 5, composition. The very first thing I noticed when I started judging was how 80 to 90% of the entries are plopped right into the middle of the canvas. We're all in different places on our artistic journey, and hey, I'm as guilty of this as the next guy. But as I was making my initial pass through the entries, the paintings that always stood out were the ones that took a chance to be different and gave my eyes a welcome relief. So if you want to stand out to the judges, give composition more than just a passing thought. Tip number 4, originality beats the pants off of copying. Please, I can't stress this enough, don't copy another well-known artist's style. Even if they're not well-known, don't copy it. And even if you think your own personal style isn't as good as your ability to copy another artist's style, either because you've studied with them extensively, or you have all their books and DVDs and you've worn them out. Now you might be able to fool some of your friends for a little while, but other artists, and more importantly, collectors will know. And not only that, you're shortchanging the world of giving it your own interpretation rather than just being a copy of someone else. Nah, don't be a mini-me. Tip number 3, I would have to say, is show them your mastery of technique. So many artists are just one of the flock. If you have a very unique technique, then you are going to stand out. I can name a whole bunch of artists who are great at this, and you know their paintings from across the room. It's one of the reasons why they're so successful. Collectors love to be able to recognize an artist's work just by glancing at it. Now, these last 2 tips are really about, I think, resetting our own expectations. Tip number 2 is understand that no doesn't mean never. This is an easy one. We're all on our artistic journey, and we're probably not as good as we're gonna be. So keep at it. Keep working on your weak spots. You know what they are. And keep trying. One of these days, that no is going to be a yes. And the number 1 tip, I don't know if this is the most important tip or not, but it certainly is important. And that's, look, you know when you've done a great painting. So don't let some stranger dictate how you feel about your painting. I've had paintings that I thought were the best I'd ever done that took years to sell, while others that I didn't feel were quite as strong sold right away. So you just need the right person to come along and connect with the work to want to give it a forever home. Art competitions are just like that. Personal taste accounts for so much of what gets selected. So let's say that you do this amazing painting of a poodle riding a bicycle on a high wire in the circus. It's obvious to you that it's destined to be purchased by a major museum, but the stupid judge didn't even give you an honorable mention? What's wrong with him? Well, maybe the judge used to be a mail carrier, and every day he got chased by a wild pack of poodles. Or maybe their girlfriend fell in love with a circus clown when the circus visited their town. And now any reminder of a circus makes them break out in a rash. You just don't know. So be gentle on the judges. It's a thankless task. And remember that everyone has their biases, whether conscious or unconscious. So even if you don't get in, or if you get in but don't win that grand prize of the inflatable Bob Ross statue you've been pining for, there's always the next one. Because as we all know, art contests are like relatives after you've won the lottery. They just keep coming. Too much? Was that too much? All right. Well, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Thank you to all my new subscribers and all my previous subscribers. I appreciate every one of you. And thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed but you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And hey, We'll see you down the road.